So the purpose of this, I didn't explain to you enough, is how to connect this Iwakura mission, the first governmental mission from Japan to Philadelphia, United States, was actualized in Philadelphia. So the next speaker, Professor Masako Hamada, will tell you how this Iwakura mission produced series of honorary consuls of Japan here in Philadelphia. Let me read Masako's brief bio. Here you go. Professor Hamada was a founder of the Japanese Studies program and taught for 31 years at Villanova University. She is the Associate Professor Emerita in the Japanese Studies program and former director of the Asian Studies program at Villanova University. Masako received the 2021 Distinguished Asianist Award from MARAAS, this convention. She's on advisory councils and institutional membership subcommittees at MARAAS as well. Masako Hamada has a doctorate degree in international and transcultural studies from Columbia University. Her fields of academic interest include intercultural communication, Japanese history, Japanese pop culture, and Japanese film and literature, and Japanese language pedagogy. Her current project is writing about the 1860s Mannen-Gannen mission and 1872's Iwakura mission to America. These missions impacted and changed the lives of both Americans, Japanese people like us. Thank you, Professor Hamada. And go ahead.
Thank you very much. So my topic is friendship. It's so important in human lives through this case is diplomacy. So I'm going to do a very brief historical background of honorary consuls and honorary consuls general for Japan in Philadelphia since 1897. So I just like to do a brief introduction. So I mentioned to you 2020 is a very special year in Japanese history. It is the 150th anniversary of railroads in Japan. Like we didn't have a railroad. We only had a wagons, like walking things, right? And then 150th anniversary of baseball in Japan. I think last month, Ambassador Mori, this ceremonial, yes, baseball in New York. And the 150th anniversary of Iwakura mission. Like Professor Ino mentioned that one of the aims, my point of view is Iwakura mission was to make a comprehensive study of modern business and industrial system in the West, in this case in America. So this is a Broad Street in Philadelphia, 1872. You see the concrete buildings we didn't have in Japan at that time. So one of the members of Iwakura mission was Tameyoshi Hida, who led the group to visit Philadelphia. So this is a lot of findings for them. May you point out that visiting various manufacturers and business facilities help the members of Iwakura mission well understand the process of industrialization and machine technologies. This knowledge helped the modernization of Meiji Japan. So this is a picture in that time. So the opening of the Consul General of New York, in Japan, so in New York, I mentioned that. So based on what, do I cut the, my apologies, I supposed to have a pictures. Oh, here it is. I clicked too fast. Sorry about this. Technology helps, sometimes not help. I have to go back to number 4. Did I go too fast? I like to, just a moment. Am I too backward? I like to go back. Thank you very much.
How much?
More. Number 1. Yes.
You can
Okay.
just do this.
Yes. Thank you. So the late 1800s, Philadelphia led the nation in industrial production, especially in manufacturing. I think everyone knows that Philadelphia was one of the top-notch city in the United States at that time. This position not only defined the city's economic status, but also shaped many of its international connections. That's how Japan connected. So they observed these places. Number one, textile weavings, top-notch place. Passenger steamships and warships, they create a lot. And the Pennsylvania's natural resources such as oil and coal. And the railroadings. Also department stores. It's John Wanamaker is the first Philadelphia's department stores, which Japanese Mitsubishi department store copied it. When you go to the main entrance, you see the two lions in front. That's copied from John Wanamaker's department stores everywhere. Now, I'd like to mention in 1876, the special year for United States, there is a Centennial International Exhibition was held in Philadelphia. So it celebrated the 100th anniversary of the signing the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia. 37 countries, including Japan, participated in it. So this is opening day. You can see they're so crowded. And then we had Japanese pavilion. See, very Japanese style traditional houses. So now I'd like to change the next topic, Honorary Consuls in Philadelphia. So the Japanese government decided to name honorary consuls in important cities such as Philadelphia. Philadelphia was the first city to have had honorary consul in the United States. So 8 honorary consuls have served in Philadelphia since 1897. The current honorary consul, Mr. Dennis Morikawa, will speak to you after me. Let me go through quickly. I'll have to introduce you 7 honorary consul and the consul generals. So I just go each consul's main point. Otherwise, I need 2 hours to finish. You can read the books when published. The first honorary consul was Alfred, Mr. Oldtimer. Sometimes it's difficult to pronounce, Ostmeyer. Okay. So he was the first honorary consul for Japan, not only in the United States, but also in Philadelphia. His business was importing, exporting. And later he was the head of one of the largest exporting, importing houses in America that helped Japanese business too. So he received the medal, it's called the Order of the Rising Sun, for his great contribution supporting the trade and shipping industry business. So he's one of the consuls went to Japan that time in a boat for maybe more than 1 month. He went to Japan to receive the medal from the Emperor Meiji. So this is a medal. I found out this medal record from the Japanese Diplomatic Archive in Tokyo office. It took time to communicate with him.
What year?
This was just a moment. Do I mention? 1901, yes. Second honorary consul was James Franklin McFadden. He was, I just make it shorter main point, he was the cotton merchant and exporters and served on the board of managers of the New York Exchange. When he was honorary consul for Japan, there was a sesquicentennial international exposition in Philadelphia, 1926, celebrating the 150th anniversary of American nation. Oh, let me move this one, James. Okay. So Japan was one of the nations to participate in the anniversary. So Japan is very actively participating in various events. Because of his contribution, he received the Order of the Rising Sun. This is a medal. Those days are more pin, not like using ribbons, more pin like a brooch types things. Oh, I have to move up. Oops. Excuse me. I just like to mention all of these honorary consuls received the medals from the Japanese government on behalf of the emperor for their service and contribution to the Japanese community. The next person I'm going to skip not showing the same medals. Oh, this is okay, thank you. So the third honorary consul for Japan was Edward Shipping Morris. He was a deputy and attorney general of Pennsylvania, and he was the son of Roland Morris, maybe you have studied that, who was ambassador to Japan. So Edward lived in Japan with his parents for 4 years, and he understood Japanese culture and society through his legal support. And because of his contribution, he received the Order of the Rising Sun medals. Oh, by the way, this is, I have to stop. There was no honorary consuls for Japan for 14 years after World War II because of the war between America and Japan, and also the suspension of diplomatic rights. So we sort of broke our friendship. So it was a very tragic period in Japanese history. Fourth honorary consul for Japan was Clarence Pickett, and maybe you heard that. He was the first postal person to be named honorary consul for Japan. And then his service to Japanese Americans during World War II. He became the executive secretary of American Friends, they call the Quaker Service Committee in 1929, for his deep religious, moral convictions on racial injustice, capitalist exploitation, and war. He received the Order of Rising Sun for his contribution. Fifth honorary consul was Joseph Stokes. He was a physician-in-chief of Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. He was credited in part with developing the German measles, kind of vaccines against measles, mumps, and influenza. He received the medal Order of Rising Sun for his service, especially from medical field, to supporting Japanese community. Sixth honorary consul was Joseph Wells Henderson. He was an attorney in Philadelphia, but also he's very focused on the cultural and artistic field, and they're becoming a founder and chairman of Independence Seaport Museum. It's there. I hope you have a chance to visit. But he also served the board of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I'm sure many of you went there. Also, World Affairs Consuls, who does a lot of actual culture like events, having the speakers. And also the Independence Hall Association and the Fairmont Park Art Association. because of his contribution through cultural contribution, he received the medal, Order of the Rising Sun. And the seventh honorary council knights becoming a color is William Eagleson. Maybe some of you know. Yeah. He had extensive business experience in Japan and also in East Asia, serving for many years as a director of private investment company for Asia. He was a vice president of Mellon Bank. In 1991, he was one of the founding members of Japan-American Society of Greater Philadelphia. Like now, Ms. Kazumi is executive director of Japan-American Society. So, for his service and contribution Japanese business community, he awarded. He's a businessman, so he got a medal but different design, the Order of the Sacred Treasure. By the Honorary Council means very, very volunteer service. Now, I'd like to introduce current Honorary Consul General for Japan since 2000, Mr. Dennis Morikawa.
I have a pleasure to introduce my friend Dennis Morikawa, who serves as the current Honorary Consul General of Japan in Philadelphia. A position he has held since being appointed by the government of Japan in 2000. He's the second longest serving Honorary Consul of Japan in the United States. For over 47 years, Dennis was a practicing attorney in Philadelphia and was a partner, in fact, the first Japanese-American partner of the law firm of Morgan Lewis, LLP, before retiring from practice in 2021. Then we sat in here, he spent years and years trying to retire. Finally, you did it in 21. I was waiting for this moment. Okay. He currently serves as the honorary co-chair of the Japan-American Society of Greater Philadelphia and has served as a director of the Japan JSGP since 1997 and previously served for many years as co-chair of the JSG board and president of the Japan-American Society of Greater Philadelphia. On January 29, 2016, Ambassador Eiichiro Takahashi bestowed on Dennis the prestigious Order of the Rising Sun, Gold Leaves and Neck Ribbon, which is one of the highest awards given to non-Japanese citizens by the government of Japan in recognition of extraordinary achievements in international relations and promoting positive relations between Japan and the United States. Here comes Dennis Morikawa. Thank you so much for being with us today. By the way, what happened to the medal?
I have it here.
Okay, good. We asked him to show you the real one. So he took from his security.
It hasn't seen the light of day.
Okay, good.
Many days.
Okay.
Before I speak, the Order of the Rising Sun is really a great honor, and I really appreciated receiving it from the government of Japan. But it's a beautiful medal. For those of you who'd like to see it, I'll leave it at the table, so you can walk up and see it afterwards. But it's a really wonderful. I wanted to just thank Kazumi Tuni, my good friend, executive director of the Japan-American Society of Greater Philadelphia for so many years. Professor Hamada, thank you very much for chairing this wonderful program.
We want to see him before I put on the PowerPoint.
And of course, Dr. Fred Dickinson,
The
my
tech
good
guy.
friend.
The tech guy.
The tech guy. I'm glad that he's here because I have no knowledge of technology, and
Clearly, I don't either.
Yeah, that's good.
But that's okay.
Blind leading the blind, but hopefully we'll be able to get through this as quickly as possible.
You good? Gonna start?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
I just, by way of background, I was appointed as the Honorary Consul of Japan in 2000. And I have served in that capacity for 22 years now. Interestingly enough, I was one of 3 honorary consuls from the New York Consulate. We report to the Consulate in New York, as opposed to other situations around the country. At the time I first became Honorary Consul of Japan in Philadelphia, there were only 12 honorary consuls in the United States. That number has now increased today to 33 consuls, and 11 of those honorary consul positions were created within the last few years, from 2018 to the present. So you can see that the number has grown significantly. Maybe as a result of all the work we did for the first few years, but I don't know.
Of course.
But I think the bottom line is people have asked me questions about the Consulate of Japan in New York, what it does. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of background about that just for your own edification. The Consulate of Japan in New York is the largest consulate general in the United States. If you judge it by staff size, it has 36 staff members, which makes it quite large. The next largest is Los Angeles with 26, and then San Francisco with 22. So you can see the size of the different consulates general. And the rest of the consulate general are spread out across the United States, and they have varying numbers. We also have a very small consular office, 2 very small consular offices in Portland, Oregon, and another one in Anchorage, Alaska, with a staff of 3, so it's relatively small. Just for your information, the largest consulate general of Japan in the world, you want to guess? DC. The embassy is in DC. The largest consulate general of Japan outside of Japan is the Consulate General of Japan in Shanghai, China. And that has the largest staff of all. So it's even larger than New York. And New York is quite large, I might add. Now, it's interesting to look at this because of the 33 honorary consuls in the United States, 4 of those honorary consuls are reporting to the Consulate General in New York. So that's the largest number of honorary consuls. I'm part of that group. We have honorary consuls in Buffalo, New York. We've recently added Albany. We also have an honorary consul in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And that is Manny Morales, who is actually the longest serving honorary consul in the United States. He served over 25 years. I'm the second ranking honorary consul, having served 22 years. And the third ranking is Joe Kessler, who's the honorary consul in Buffalo, and he served 20 years. So you can just see the progression. And no, we're not paid either. So we've just served in these capacities for a long, long time. It's a labor of love, it truly is. But it's been a great honor serving in that position. I want to just say thank you. If you don't mind, I'm just going to sit down here. I've just returned from a trip to Italy, and I was walking 10 miles a day, and I re-injured my back. So I apologize for sitting down. Another distinction of the New York consulate that a lot of people don't know is the fact that the Consul General of New York in New York holds a specific title, that is an ambassador. And that is the only Consul General office in the United States, in which the Consul General holds an ambassadorial status. And that's very significant. The major reason being that the ambassador in New York, who is Ambassador Mori, is responsible for meeting and dealing with very high-ranking officials from the Japanese government, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, and also is responsible for dealings with other countries' ambassadors. So therefore, this is a very important post. If you compare that to all the other offices in the United States. Ambassador Mori just had Prime Minister Kishida, who was at the United Nations last week, and he was entertaining him during the week. And Susan Onuma was there. I'm sure you're always there. I've known Susan Onuma for many, many years, practicing attorney in New York, and she's very active in the Japanese Association in New York. As you can see, there are just a number of overlapping organizations that we have here in the United States, all of which really play significant roles in furthering the relationship between the United States and Japan. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about what we do as honorary consuls. I've been asked that question by Professor Hamada. And Kazumi Tuni said, what do you do?
Yes. After 20 years of my association with you, I just.
First, I want to just start by saying that, the position is interesting because I've served as a member of the board and as the chair of the board and president of the Japan American Society of Greater Philadelphia for a number of years. I see other board members sitting here, Frank Chance, and others who have for many years contributed so generously of their time to this organization. But in terms of duties, in terms of the things we do and perform, so much of it actually works together with the mission of the Japan American Society of Greater Philadelphia, because its major function is to further and improve relations between Japan and the United States, and that's exactly what we do. And that's the same job that I have as honorary consul. So I've been able to work together with Kazumi and others at the Japan American Society here, and doing types of activities that really further enhance the relationship between our two countries. So it really works quite well. I can wear two hats with the Japan American Society Board as well as honorary consul. And in that way, we continue to nurture that relationship over the years. And it's gone quite well. I want to give special tribute to Frank Chance, who has spent so much time in the Japanese House, Shokuso, one of the real gems of this city, and we're so proud of it. The Japan American Society, among other things, has spent a lot of time, effort, and monetary contribution in making sure that Shokuso, the Japanese House of Garden, continues to be the wonderful representation of Japan here in Philadelphia. And Frank and others with the original group, the Friends of the Japanese House of Garden, have really been responsible for that great success. You really deserve a lot of thanks for that. Some of the things that we do here in Philadelphia include the very famous Subaru Cherry Blossom Festival, which we have held for years and years. How many of you here have been to the Cherry Blossom Festival? But this coming year, we're expecting to have a very exciting Cherry Blossom Festival. We haven't had one in a couple of years, fortunately because of the pandemic, and it really kind of put a little crimp on our plans. But I think we're going to be having a really wonderful program this next April. And I hope that those of you who are in the city will please come out to the Cherry Blossom Festival, because it stands to be a really, really exciting program. We have Hamada University singers and dancers who are going to come back over. The type of drummers. It's going to be quite an exciting program. So I really encourage you all to be here. And of course, the Ambassador and Consul General of New York, to whom I report, will be coming out for that program. Do you have the Cherry Blossom Festival?
Mm-hmm.
The Tonegawa University drummers and dancers have really been a highlight of the Cherry Blossom Festival over the years. Those of you who come to these programs recognize how exciting this has been and what a great representation of Japan this presents. This is what I call outreach. This is what is important in furthering an understanding of what we do and what Japan is all about and what Japanese culture means to this area. And I think more than anything, the Cherry Blossom Festival has been the one single event which has sort of solidified that relationship over the years. And it's attracted hundreds of thousands of people to Philadelphia to come to the festival, to look at the beautiful flowering cherry trees, the sakura, and that's really been an important component of our success with the Japan American Society. I give a lot of credit to Kazumi Tuni, who was one of the major functionaries of the Cherry Blossom Festival. He's done a wonderful job. And of course, we also do other things. My capacity as Honorary Consul, we sponsor business organizational events. JETRO, for example, was here this summer. The Japanese External Trade Association came in to do a major program here in Philadelphia. We plan to have many more JETRO programs in Philadelphia. We've also had the Sakura Collection Fashion Show at Penn. I don't know how many of you here went to that. It was really a lot of fun. And we hope to have those kinds of programs in the future as a way of continuing to keep that relationship between Japan and Philadelphia going. Because they are fun, and they really show a very good side of Japan that I think is important for people to see, to fully appreciate what Japan is all about. I also participate, for example, in the Consular Corps Association in Philadelphia, which is a very large organization consisting of honorary consuls and consuls from other countries. And we do interact a lot, and we exchange ideas about what we do and what our countries are each doing to further relations between the people of Philadelphia and respective countries. And that has really been a very helpful thing in terms of keeping the Japan connection alive, even amongst all the other consuls. So that's a very important part of our job. Now, another part of my job, and I know that Professor Hamada wanted to know, what I do, day to day. Well, just to give you some idea of that, let's do slide 2. I act as a liaison to U.S. political leaders here in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, and as you can see, we have events. We go visit Governor Wolf. We had Ambassador Yamamochi here, who went to Harrisburg, and we had wonderful meetings with Governor Wolf. And Ambassador Yamamochi, I don't know how many of you met him, but he was a really vibrant personality, just a wonderful representative of Japan. And a person who had just an amazing ability to get along with people. He met and became a good friend of Governor Wolf just from the first meeting, and they continued to stay in touch. And it just gives you an idea of the kind of great personalities some of the consul generals and ambassadors can have in terms of fostering these relations. Ambassador Yamamochi is now the ambassador to Canada, so he left the New York consulate and he's now in Canada, and doing a great job up there. Although he tells me he said he's a little bored and it's a little remote up there in Ottawa. I don't know if any of you have been to Ottawa, but if you had to get a diplomatic posting, I could think of other places I'd recommend. We had a special visit by so I had to do a little bit of scrambling to set up this meeting, but they had a really wonderful time. And again, Governor Wolf, as most of the politicians are in Pennsylvania, are very cooperative and have really reached out in an effort to really solidify the relations with Japan, which they consider to be a very, very important trading partner for Pennsylvania and in the Philadelphia region. Next slide. Mayor Kenny and Ambassador Mori, in a recent visit, Ambassador Mori is the new ambassador and consul general in New York. He had a meeting with Mayor Kenny recently, and in fact, they've had 2 or 3 meetings recently. And as a matter of fact, I was just giving an account to Professor Hamada that I think between Ambassador Yamamochi and Ambassador Mori, they've been to Philadelphia something like 7 or 8 times just in the last 18 months. So it gives you an idea how often they do come to Philadelphia. But a lot of times they aren't necessarily going to major events. They are really going for special meetings and things like that. So at those times, Kazumi has asked me, he said, when do they come in and go out of Philadelphia? And I say, well, they come in and they meet with the mayor or they meet with the governor, and then they go back home.
What is he holding? What is
Yeah.
he holding in this?
That's a base.
Oh, it's a vase. It was a presentation of a vase that Ambassador Mori gave to Mayor Kenny. Beautiful vase. He has it now in his own special conference room on the shelf. He's very proud of it. He really liked that. Then finally, go ahead. Ambassador Mori, when he was visiting at the summer, had an opportunity to meet with Liz McGill, the new president of Penn. It was actually the very first meeting that President McGill had with anybody from outside of Penn. She said, I've been only talking to faculty members for the last weeks and weeks, and I have not met anybody else. So she was thrilled to meet Ambassador Mori, and he was thrilled to meet her. She's a wonderful person. And for those of you who don't know this, she was the former law clerk to Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court of the United States. Pretty significant. And a really great scholar, legal scholar, and a very accomplished person. I think she's going to do a wonderful job.
You tell us the name again?
Liz McGill. Yeah. Go ahead, next. Then, not everything I do is boring. Sometimes we have the opportunity to meet government officials. In this particular case, Prime Minister Abe, who came to New York to speak to the United Nations General Assembly. And on that occasion, Susan Onuma was there. We had a chance to really spend some time and speak to him and to kind of get to know him a little bit. He was unfortunately, he died tragically, as you know, in July. But he was a very, very important leader of Japan and played an important role, I think, in solidifying the Indo-Pacific region of that part of the world. And that really is regarded by the United States, at least, as a very important relationship that Prime Minister Abe really continued and strengthened. And we're hoping that in the case of his successor, Prime Minister Kishida, who was his foreign minister at the time, that he'll continue those policies in that part of the world. We are watching very anxiously to see how that relationship will actually lead out over time. Coincidentally, the person in the middle is none other than Prime Minister Kishida, who I met at a reception that was thrown by the ambassador to the United Nations some years ago. And at that time, he was foreign minister. At that time, he had no idea that he was going to become the Prime Minister of Japan. But we had a great opportunity to speak. Turns out that we both, our relatives, our ancestors came from Hiroshima. I had a nice conversation with him. He said he knew many Morikawas from Hiroshima. He put in a good word for him when he goes back. But it's a very interesting piece, very personable, and I think he's going to be facing many challenges as the new Prime Minister of Japan as we move forward. So just in conclusion, I just wanted to do a couple of brief points. I think the relationship between the United States and Japan is an exceptionally strong relationship. I think in a poll, over 75% of Americans view Japan favorably, which is, I think, the highest perception of Japan by any country in the world. And that really speaks well for the relationship between the two countries, the importance of how we see each other, and the relationship that we need to continue to nurture as we go forward. Therefore, the position that we hold as honorary consuls is very important because we need to continue to maintain that visibility, to maintain the positive relations between our two countries, to set a good example, for what Japan represents, both in Philadelphia as well as in the United States. And I think that is one of our most important responsibilities, is maintaining and nurturing that relationship in any ways that we can. Those of you may know that the whole idea of relationships is sometimes very tenuous and it's very delicate. Unfortunately, back in June, some of you may be aware of the fact that there was a vandalism committed on Shokuzo, the Japanese house in Fairmont Park. It was very, very disheartening to see. And we don't know whether it was reflective reflective of an attitude about Japan or Asian anything, but it certainly troubled everybody because that was really the one living symbol of Japan that we have here in Philadelphia. You know, it's a true representative of Japan. And I think as Kazumi has described it, it's a sample of Kyoto right in our backyard, right? And yet this vandalism was committed, which always reminds us we always have to be diligent in maintaining this relationship and always being cognizant of the fact that that relationship can be disturbed by just the slightest things, you know, by just a few small people that hurt the rest. So we hope that, you know, that relationship can continue going forward in the future. I think it is, as Japan's very close friend and a citizen diplomat once said, I've met him several times in New York at we call the Emperor's birthday party. Dr. Henry Kissinger said that no foreign policy, no matter how ingenious, has any chance of success if it is born in the minds of the few and carried in the hearts of the many. And I think those words really resonate with me because we realize it's not just a matter of saying things, it's a matter of doing things and convincing people that the relationship between our countries is genuine and important to us. And I think as long as we can work together as a group in that knowledge and with that commitment, I think this relationship will get stronger and stronger over the years. So I thank you very much for the chance to explain what I do for a living. If you'd like to see me,
Thank you so much, Dennis. Now, this is my last panelist here, Susan Onuma from New York. She came all the way from New York City to join us today. An attorney by profession, Ms. Onuma is a partner with New York boutique law firm Ingram, Yuzek, Linen, Cow, and sorry, English is not my second language. Where she represents the business interests of Japanese corporations in the United States. Born and raised in New York, Susan is a graduate of Barnard College, Columbia University, and the University of Pennsylvania here Law School. She has attended the Inter-University Center of Japanese Language Studies, IUC, in Tokyo, Japan. Ms. Onuma is very active in the Japanese American community. For many years, she was the first female president of the Japanese American Association of New York, 115 year old community-based not-for-profit organization, and currently serves as its honorary president and is vice chair of the Japan History Council, a group that was formed in late 2020 to create digital museum on the history of Japanese in the New York area. She also serves on the board of governors of the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles and is corporate secretary of Japan Society in New York. For her contributions in the furthering US-Japan relations, Susan received the Japanese Foreign Minister's Commendation in 2014, and in 2020, she received the Order of the Rising Sun from the government of Japan, of course with Dennis Morikawa, and I have to add one more person, Professor Ino has received the same version in Japan. In her spare time, Susan enjoys playing shopkeeper in her store Kokoro, located in Maplefield, New Jersey, where she resides. Now, Susan, please.
So Dennis, be careful. I don't know where mine is, so I might just take this one home.
It has my name on it, by the way.
You know, you put these things in such a safe place, and then later you forget where that safe place is. So anyway, thank you, and thank you so much for having me today, and thank you to Kazumi-san for your warm introduction, and Yamada-sensei for organizing this talk. And as the theme is sort of diplomacy, and diplomacy, as we've been talking about, is people-to-people connections. And so this conference has been a wonderful way to make connections, and also for me to get to know the people of Philadelphia, and course, Dennis, but also Ito Sensei, who came from Tokyo. So I'm very happy to be here. Today's talk is about the Digital Museum, and this was started by Ambassador Yamanouchi, who Dennis spoke warmly about. He truly is a literal rock star. He is a rock musician, and he performed for us while he was the ambassador in New York. And so during the height of the pandemic, he asked us, JAA, if we would help with this new project to form a digital museum about the history of Japanese in New York. And while much is known about Japanese immigration and migration to Hawaii and the West Coast, very little is actually known about East Coast and what the Japanese have contributed. And it's a very different demographic. Many Japanese immigrants came not for agricultural purposes, but for academic and also business. So there are a lot of doctors who came to study medicine, and also a lot of business people who studied either silk trade or the tea trade. And so it's a very interesting history. JAA, which was formed 115 years ago, was actually founded by a doctor who took care of sailors who came off the boats, because it was near the Brooklyn Navy Yards, and when they died, there was no place to bury them. So he bought some land to start a Japanese cemetery, so that there was a place to bury them. And the Nippon Club, which was also 115 years old, was started by a scientist. And so and at that time, they were also very as they are now too, that many served on the boards of other organizations, and so it's very interrelated. But in doing the digital museum, you find all kinds of interesting facts. And it was also during the height of the pandemic, and it was the start of the anti-Asian violence and anti-hate crimes. And so we thought that this was a great opportunity to showcase the contributions of Japanese in the area. And not just for Japanese, because there are many Japanese who came to us afterwards and said, oh, we had no idea, we didn't know. But also to educate mainstream America, and especially young people. And coincidentally, although we don't have a physical museum, during the pandemic, many physical museums started to digitalize their collections so that they were more accessible to their audience. And so it's funny that we only have a digital museum, but we also have been asked to do special exhibits that were physical. So that's something we're thinking about in the future. So right now it's still very grassroots. The board is made up of a cross-section of the Japanese community in New York, representing business, academia, the arts, and we have, I guess, over 30 volunteers who helped create the museum, and we also had a lot of help from the Consul General, Lane Walker, who's here, has been very instrumental in helping us create the content of the digital museum. Because when Ambassador Yamanouchi asked us to do this, I said, oh, that's fine, but JA has no staff, which is true. We just have an executive director, but most of our activities are done by volunteers. So I said, you have to provide the staff. And so I guess Lane was one of those that appointed. But it really is a labor of love. And once you start getting into it, you find all kinds of interesting facts. One fact that some of you may not know, I don't know if we have one of Otaru Misaka, but many of you may not know that the first non-white NBA basketball player was not African American, but Japanese American. And he played for the New York Knicks. And it was just after World War II, which makes it even more interesting that he was actually recruited to play on a team after World War II. And not only that, I know you said you lost 4 inches, but he was only 5'7", which is even more amazing. His career, unfortunately, didn't last very long, but it was a very interesting fact to discover. So, and then, so this year, in celebration of the 150th anniversary of the Iwakura mission, we decided to do a special exhibit. So Lane and his colleagues and a team of volunteers worked tirelessly for several months to put together a special exhibit on the Iwakura mission. And this was also a learning experience because, you know, we also had to learn how to make more interactive and work with a website designer. So it was a lot of work, but I think we learned a lot from it, and also, you know, going forward, it makes it easier for us to do other exhibits. So as discussed by Professor Ino, you know, the Iwakura mission was a truly historic and significant mission that not only covered the United States, but also several countries in Europe. And the Consul General of Japan, New York, was set up in 1872, the same year as the mission. And what I thought I would do, because we don't have that much time, is maybe just quickly go through what they found interesting. I think, you know, we sometimes take things for granted, but then also you have to realize that it's 150 years ago for the United States as well. And so like in New York, when they came to visit New York, they visited Grand Central Terminal, which had just been completed. I don't know how many of you have been to Grand Central Terminal in New York, but it's a beautiful railway station. And if you go to Tokyo Station in Japan, Honorary Japan, it really kind of reminds you of the original Grand Central station that was built. So, you know, I would like to think that, oh, they took that idea. I think Hamada Sensei mentioned Watermakers when they came to visit Philadelphia. But in New York, they visited the A.T. Stewart store, which was huge, and they were very impressed not just by its size and architecture, but by the number of goods that were in the inventory, the huge inventory that they had. And I think someone had mentioned that Mitsukoshi started the first department store in 1904 in Japan. And as many of you know, now Japanese department stores have like the highest level of consumer satisfaction. They have really kind of developed to such a, you know, level that people joke that shopping is Japan's national sport. You know, because if you go to Ginza or Shibuya, it's just packed with people shopping. So, another interesting thing was newspapers. They visited the New York Tribune, and at the time, the delegation observed that half of Americans read more than one newspaper a day. And they found this very interesting. And they also realized that newspapers were a great way to disseminate information to the general public. And so when they went back, 3 of the major Japanese newspapers that are still in existence today were started. The Mainichi Shimbun in 1872, the Yomiuri Shimbun in 1874, and the Asahi Shimbun in 1879. And these newspapers were used especially to disseminate information in the areas of politics and culture. So that was another thing that they found interesting. I don't know if we're going to talk about suspension bridges. In terms of technology, they went to visit Niagara Falls, but they were amazed that there was a bridge that went from New York to Canada over the falls. Not just one bridge, but 2. One carrying a railway, and the other was more for pedestrians and traffic. But that bridge was designed by John Rowland, who later designed the Brooklyn Bridge. But currently, Japan has the longest central span suspension bridge in the world, and that is connecting Kobe to Awaji Islands, called the Asahi Kaikyo Bridge. The other thing that they found very interesting were streetcars that were operated by electricity. And so this was something new. And also the elevated train system, where it's not level to the street, but it was upper. It was also very interesting for them. And as many of you know, Japan now has the best high-speed rail system in the world, where people set their watches by the train schedule because it's so accurate. The other little known fact on the education side was the role that Rutgers University played. I think we have Professor Haruko Wakabayashi he's still here, has done a lot in this area. But by 1872, dozens of Japanese students had already studied at Rutgers College, including two sons of Ambassador Iwakura. And so it's a very interesting relationship that Japan has with Rutgers, and there's a lot of material on it, and I think there's a website that we can now go to where there's more on that. In terms of the Philadelphia connection, as mentioned earlier by Hamada Sensei, the manufacturing, the visits to the factories were really, really very impressive to the delegation, and also because of the resource pool that they had and how it was operated. But the other thing I found interesting was the library system. So Benjamin Franklin in Philadelphia founded the public library system, and the delegation was very impressed by not just the size of the number of volumes that were in the library, but also the very different types of libraries that were spread throughout the city. So in 1872, Japan's first public library was opened. And 20 years later, the Japan Library Association was created to promote nationwide library services. And then skipping through to Boston and the DC, I'll just quickly highlight, they visited the Federal Arsenal Works where they manufacture guns. That was something that they also brought back to Japan, because until then, military guns were mostly imported from China. And so when they saw how guns were made in the United States, they were very impressed. And they later developed their own system and guns. The other, I think they call it the Murata gun, was developed. And also a lot of the manufacturing techniques and procedures were brought and helped with the development of Japan's shipbuilding, coal and steel industries, which of course, as you know, is now one of the biggest. When they went to DC, they were impressed by the US postal system. And as you know, Japan has a very extensive postal system. I was very shocked when I first went to Japan, where there is actually an envelope marked cash enclosed that you're supposed to use when you're sending cash. And I said, you could never do this in the United States because the envelope will never be delivered. And then they also have the saving system, which you don't have here. But they were very impressed that the U.S. mail system, or the U.S. postal system, could actually deliver mail to Japan. The other thing that they found very impressive was the Smithsonian Institute and the museums, and how artifacts and history was preserved in museums. And so this also helped them to develop museums. So in conclusion, I'm going to conclude because we also have a poster outside, not outside, but in the other building. And so if people have more questions, Lane and I can answer. But it's been a great project for us, because it really brought the community together. So it's something that you might also consider. And we also got a lot of help from students who provided their volunteer time or their translation skills in creating this digital music event. So it's ongoing, and so we hope to do more also with the group in Philadelphia. So thank you very much.